the menu, whether it is a drink menu, spa menu, food menu, is, as you should know, a marketing tool. And as I always say, also a contract with the customer in the sense that you're providing something that you see in the state that you see it in. So, and the layout becomes very, very important. So if we're talking about food, we're talking about anything else, the things that you can put on there, and I would say if we're talking about food now, the food allergies, and this is not making fun of it at all, it's become a very, 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 very big deal. Religious dietary restrictions in South Florida, given that we have an influx of different cultures here, I think that's also an important thing to put on there if you're the way that you process certain things, or that they contain certain types of products that some of your customers may not be able to eat because of religious reasons. So that becomes a factor as well. When you look at the menu itself, and again, we have to look at, as we said before, just like at the beginning of this, of these slides, is who is our menu going after? Who are we competing against, and what do they serve? And what's going on in the market right now is a trend that that may affect our menu positively or negatively, or maybe something that we need to go ahead and add to it. Types of pricing, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Types of menus. You can look at, what's best for you. What do you think just goes back to your customers again, and your target market is what you think they will like. And you go, really, we want to know what kind of menu layout they're like, and the answer is yes. You got a menu that's 45 pages long. I think that's great. For me as a customer, I don't want to have that many options. And I'm not saying you need to be like me, and you may not be like me, and you may think I'm weird. I just don't want to spend that much time deciding. And a lot of places have done very well with that. And then, of course, as a former operator and manager, I just think about the cost associated with having 50 items on a menu, and it makes my head spin. So there's that aspect of it as well. Font, does it matter? Yes, it does. So again, all things that factor into, like when we read, where our eyes go to on a page. If it's a book or a magazine or a newspaper, menus are the same way. So what do we want to make stick out? How do we want to make it stick out? Where do we want to make it stick out? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These things all play into it. You have to remember that. Descriptions are important, right? We're painting a visual picture, unless there are pictures obviously involved. We're painting a visual picture of what we want that to look like in your mind. That becomes very important. So something that we have to factor in as well. Menu marketing, like we talked about, worked for some large companies where we had test kitchens, and we conducted consumer field tests before we rolled anything out. It's a great thing to do to get some feedback, but at the same time, let's say you have 40 people in there, you're thinking that those 40 people are going to be the voice of your customers. All of them. And you plan those groups based on characteristics that should pretty well tell you, but it doesn't always mean that there's going to be success just because 40 people in a room go, great, right? So, that's something that you look at. Rolling out a new menu item is always very interesting and tricky, and many times successful and profitable, sometimes not. Same thing with beverages and looking at wine lists. Why buy the glass? Why buy the bottle? How many whites? How many reds? How many, rosés? How many dessert wines? How many, whatever, champagne? It doesn't matter. Just what is it that you think you need? And again, these things go hand in hand with the menu, wine and menu pairings. Look, if you don't have a sommelier, then it's like, okay, we're serving fish, so what kind of wine do we need to go with trout? And what about our pork chops? And what about our steaks? And what about our, chicken parmesan? So looking at that from that standpoint, and drink pairings, just drinks in general. Walk into a bar and I see that there's, 40 different kinds of tequila. I think that's really, really cool if everybody drinks those 40 different kinds of tequila. Otherwise, it's inventory sitting there collecting dust. So you got to think about that. Taste, portion size, method of preparation. I'll circle real back to drinks real quick. I love to watch bartenders, as a former bartender, mix drinks by hand and not use measured pour things, which are called jiggers, which are those little silver things you see at the bar. Gives you an accurate pour, but I like the flash of a bartender being able to do it without equipment. Having said that, I want it to be precise and accurate, and that takes training and repetition. But you also look at taste there, and you also look like method of preparation and how it's done. When you make a Manhattan the right way, when you make a martini the right way, for example. Prices charged and guest willingness to buy. Health concerns, people may ask. And this goes back to education and training. Do your servers know? Oh, I don't think so is not an answer I want a server to say when there's a health-related issue on a menu item. And vegetarian, organic, vegan, lacto, all these different things that go into it. I tell my servers all the time, you don't know, you come in the kitchen and you ask us. But don't guess. And then if you have things that cause allergies, you see this all the time with shellfish and raw and undercooked food. Look, that's required by law that you put these things on a menu. You're protecting yourself just as much as you're protecting them. So, again, we talked about target market competition and trends, low end, mid value, and upscale. It's a very interesting thing about psychological pricing. You may not pay $3, but you think $2.99 is a good deal. It's a penny. There's proof in it. So then you have mid-range where it ends in a 5. As stupid as that sounds, theory behind that too, right? So it's crazy how that happens. And then upscale usually ends in a 0. Now, in most places where you're paying tax, it's not going to be that even number, but you look at that, and even though it may not register in your mind at the time, the next time you go out, start to look at that pricing, and now you know if it's low, mid, or upscale pricing. I would say you want to be consistent on your menu. If somebody's not, it makes me a little nervous. I don't know that it's planned the best way. I would keep it consistent throughout, if at all possible. Reflect favorability, uncluttered, easy to read. Half the space should be blank. When you're describing things, don't get too crazy, right? Use the same verbiage. Good, catchy words, grammatically correct. That would help. No hard to understand items. You walk into a French restaurant and the menu's in French and you don't speak French, then I really hope that the waiter does and translates well, right? And says, oh, if you've never been here before, let me explain to you the stuff that you're looking at. You have no idea what it means. Because us trying to pronounce it may be embarrassing in a whole bunch of different ways. Emphasize descriptions rather than prices. So what if we want to change it? Let's look at money. And then if we take something on, are we taking something off? And I'd mentioned previously in some of the other chapters that, for lack of a better word, if I make a few people mad because I take a menu item off, that may be the price I have to pay because it doesn't sell very well. Someone may come in and go, the only reason I came in here is because you used to make this. And you go, well, you know what? Don't tell anybody. We can still make that. We just don't have it on the menu anymore. I see that in a lot of different places where, look, the ingredients are still here. It's just not something we want to keep on hand. If somebody has to order it, there's a recipe in the back and we can make it. We just don't want to do it. Or you just say, I'm sorry, we don't have that item anymore. We just discontinued it, and you deal with the fact that they're going to be mad. That's the business. Wine, spirits, and beer menus, again, same as food. Easy to read, clean. What do your customers want? I mentioned 40 different kinds of tequila. If you're not making specialty drinks with really good tequila, or you're in a restaurant where the theme doesn't really go well with 40 different kinds of tequila, you have wasted inventory and lost revenue. You go, well, a bottle of tequila only costs, it's $25. Okay, right, but we sell a shot for $6, and we get over 30 shots in a bottle. Now you look at how much revenue you're losing on a $25 bottle of tequila sitting on the shelf and nobody drinking it. So it is how you look at what you're going to need. It's not to say that you need 50 different types of wine. Now, if you're a high-end steakhouse that has a limited menu and really knows that it pairs well with a bunch of wines, then maybe you do. Going back to what is the point? What is the purpose? What are you trying to do? So it doesn't matter if it's potato chips, French fries, sandwiches, salads, beer, wine, liquor, dessert, whatever the case may be. You've got to go back and look and say, we do need this, we don't need this, this would be a good idea, this would be a bad idea, I think we should have this, I think we should have that. It doesn't matter. Listen, the thing that we would always say when I worked corporate and we saw these small mom and pop places was like, it must be nice to be a chef and come in every day and say to yourself, today I feel like this, and this is the chef special. And 100% that's a great feature to have. Corporate restaurants with 20 restaurants, or corporate hotels with 20 restaurants that are branded to them, can't do that every day. They may have a little flexibility to do one thing, but the consistency of menu, if you stay at a hotel in Chicago and then stay at a hotel in, Los Angeles, is, oh, this is the same restaurant as the one I was there, and they had this. So a little less wiggle room, if you will. An example of a printed menu service, what you're going to do. I mean, again, it's presentation. I always encourage people to say, these 3 things right here, how would you write descriptions on a menu to describe those 3 things? If you closed your eyes and you said, okay, I need to paint a picture for the guest of what the dish on the right is, the dish on the bottom is, the dish on the top is. How do I do that effectively, honestly, pretty concisely, and where you can almost see their mouth watering, going, oh my God, that sounds so good, and oh, I love that kind of bread, or those are my favorite kind of fries, or oh man, I love spice. So it's up to us to decide the best way to help them decide, and then, get them to purchase it over and over again.